Why are public sector professionals still feeling under-resourced? This week we are joined by Peter Crestani, Wellington Branch Manager from Frog Recruitment, to unpack the growing pressure facing government teams and why so many professionals say they feel under-resourced. With 53% of government professionals describing their team as under-resourced, what is really driving this sentiment across the sector, and what does it mean for leaders trying to support stretched teams? Also on today's show, hiring intentions up, thank goodness, is confidence turning into action? And lastly, are you looking to hire quality talent fast? We have 3 new top candidates that are ready to work across Aotearoa. Welcome to 𝗵𝗵𝘁, New Zealand's premier employment market update. I'm Shannon Barlow, host of the show from Frog Recruitment. Today we're looking at, are public sector teams being asked to deliver more with less, or are they still being asked to do that? Frog Recruitment's 2026 Employment and Salary Trends report has revealed that 53% of government professionals are describing their team as under-resourced. Across the sector, many government professionals are navigating growing workloads, tighter budgets, skills shortages, and rising expectations, all while trying to maintain service delivery and support their communities. It raises a bigger question about whether these challenges are temporary strain or signs of a deeper workforce issue shaping the sector in 2026. To discuss this further, we're joined today by Peter Crestani, Wellington Branch Manager from Frog Recruitment. Hi there, Peter.
Hi, Shannon. How's it in Auckland today?
Oh, it's a bit dreary out here today.
Yeah.
A little bit more of that on the way, it seems. But spirits are up, things are good, got to stay positive. Now, to set the scene, how would you describe the public sector market at the moment?
Well, I think we probably have to go back a little bit at the moment because look at what's happened over the last couple of years. So after the last election, the market was dismal for probably a good 18 months. We started seeing a real pick up from middle of last year. So last year was sort of a year of 2 halves, very quiet beginning and busy end. It's still busy, and we think this year is probably going to be, again, a year of 2 halves, because if we look at the election cycle, and we're very much affected by that here in Wellington. Leading into election, there's often a hiatus, so we're thinking August, September, perhaps September, October is going to be quite a bit quieter leading into the election. So that's kind of the overall scheme of things. We still have some roles that are really competitive where there's lots of candidates, but there are some very role-specific market shortages, like, for instance, in senior policy. That's a very tight market in the permanent space. So you can advertise, you don't get much of any applicants who fit the bill, where they've had 5 to 8 years experience, they've worked in government for that time, and are looking for a new opportunity. And I think that's partly driven because the people are a little bit scared. So they've had the cuts leading up until middle of last year, and they're often sitting, if they've got a good job, a good boss, they're sitting there quietly waiting to see what happens after the election. So staff turnover, I think, would be very much lower in some organisations, and they're also reticent to jump to a new organisation. And we've got things like the Minister of Transport, 𝗵𝗵𝘁, and I think it's HUD that are joining together. So those 3 organisations are in a holding pattern, if you will, and that's not uncommon. So people are sort of sitting going, okay, and permanent people looking to move into those organisations are often a little bit, well, I don't know what it's going to look like, who am I going to report to, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a tale of 2 halves in some respects with the market at the moment. So good at the moment, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely, it does seem to go through these extremes. So, as you said, it was a really tough time within that sector for a long time. And people are crying out for jobs or trying to keep the ones that they had. And then we saw that momentum. It was really exciting, but then you have the opposite problem of trying to find the right level of skill and experience and talent for those roles as well. So always a tricky one there. Now back to the results from our 2026 market report. So we found that over half of government professionals describe their team as under-resourced, which is not particularly surprising given what's been happening over the last couple of years. But why do you think that feeling's so widespread across the sector?
Yeah, the 53% I thought was possibly a bit lighter. I was anticipating it to be a higher percentage from what the people that I've talked to. But so with the cuts that happened 18 months ago, a lot of organisations still have that workload, if not more, and they've got less people to do it. So it's really as simple as that. High workload, lower staffing levels to support those roles. And there's still that machinery of government bureaucracy component. So a lot of systems haven't been improved, as in sign-offs. Often we hear of someone does a piece of work, they're tasked with a work stream or a project in government, and they do the work, gets approved along the way, but then it has to go through final approvals, and that can go through a cast of 5, 10 people, and everyone has to have a look at it and sign it off. So you've still got that bureaucratic process to go through, and that hasn't, I think there's some moves to streamline that more. Some organisations are a lot better about that though. So we've got one client that we've been working a lot with, and their sign-off process has been greatly reduced. So it's really enabled the staff to be able to do more. So, and then you've got the new government imperatives coming up with new ideas. And so bing bong, you've got your current way to work, and then all of a sudden you've got something else to do as well. So that makes it really challenging. And I think it's as simple as that. And it's has been very challenging with all the changes as well, sort of morale-wise with people. They've been through restructures, and that puts a lot of stress on people about job uncertainty, and then you've got cost of living increases as well. And if we look at the salary survey, it looked like those surveys, I'll just have a look because I can't remember the number, but it was something like, it was about between 47 to 62% of employers were thinking of pay rises up to 1 to 3%. So that will help a bit, but with what's going on at the moment, that does seem to be a bit light, but then that will increase inflation. So all in all, there's sort of external factors, internal factors at play, and that's why that's quite stressful for them.
Yeah, so but obviously an array of different reasons for organisations and teams to be under-resourced. Of course, you've got the budget pressures as well. And then back to, it seems strange to be talking about this after, we talk about or rather we've seen the results from the last quarter with the still high unemployment rate. So it seems strange to be talking about skills shortages, but we are seeing that as well. I remember you said, we had a fantastic pickup of work in the last half of last year, and one of the agencies we were working with said, "Great, we've gone through all the changes, we've got the green light to recruit and to finally get some support in for the team." But it wasn't a matter of just opening the door and then the people come in, because they'd gone elsewhere or other factors and whether or not they were willing to move. So definitely a complex problem there. You've touched on this a little bit already, but some of these pressures will be shorter term challenges or things directly related to the market at the moment. But I guess a lot of these things you would have, in your experience, I'm sure you would have seen all these things before. And is it part of a deeper structural issue in how public sector teams are being staffed and supported?
Very good question. I think it is about resourcing and staffing. The other thing to consider is I did some work on following up with some candidates in the senior policy space we hadn't talked to for quite some time. And anecdotally, something like, if we hadn't been in contact with them and they were younger, something like 40 or 50% of them had gone offshore, which really astounded me because I'd heard a bit about it, but then actually seeing these people that are in Australia now predominantly, or they've gone to Europe and then they've been to the UK for a bit and they're going back to Australia. So I think there's that underlying brain drain there, which we really haven't unpicked enough, and that's perhaps a really good subject for us to work on a little bit as well, to get some information around that. So I think the systemic issues are how does government deliver its work programs, the structure of how they make decisions perhaps needs to be rethought. I know the Public Service Commission are working on different ideas about that at the moment, but it's a big beast to change. You can't just change it overnight. It's a big oil tanker and it takes quite some time to manoeuvre it. So you can't just go bing bong, okay, tomorrow we're changing how we're doing it and everything will get a lot quicker and better. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't work in large corporates either. So it's a multifaceted. It's not just a one size fits all kind of answer. Sorry.
Yeah, and I guess the other another complexity that adds into that is, of course, you're working through election and quite short election cycles as well. So you might get a bit of a flow on and make some changes within there, but then the goalposts can move pretty quickly if new government comes in as well. So those factors.
Yes.
For leaders who are listening, who know their teams are feeling stretched, what are some of the practical things that they should be doing now to better support their people?
One of the first things I thought of is if you have spare budget, if your team's under stress and you have budget and you're able to recruit, go hard and find people to help support your team. So if you've got that spend there, you're allowed to recruit. Don't sit on your hands. Go out there and really work it. I think revisiting work programs as well, prioritising. Can we put this one off? Do we need to throw more resource in this? What's most important and what's most urgent? And really rethinking often your work program. The other one is temperature check your staff regularly. If they've been really busy, talk to them, let them have some time off, make sure they're fresh, because it is going to be busy through to the election, and they will get people under pressure, don't perform as well, you may not see it, but temperature checking your staff is really, really important. Just common sense, look after them like they're your staff and like they're your kids, or they're your colleagues and they're your friends, you want to look after them. And that human element sometimes gets lost under pressure. I've seen that a bit recently where perhaps the managers haven't been so caught up in restructures and delivery that they've forgotten the human element who's actually delivering the work. And that sort of pastoral care is really important.
Just to clarify, you weren't talking about me, right?
Yeah. No, of course not.
Oh,
No.
He hesitated. Thanks for that, Peter. Really interesting space to see, and obviously some big changes there, and to see how that pans out. And a lot of the pressures and challenges that are being felt in the public sector, of course, relay into the private sector as well. So some good tips for looking after your people, and that temperature check's just so important to kind of stave off the risk of burnout as well. Okay, so let's run into 𝗵𝗵𝘁. Hiring intentions up, confidence is turning into action. So, you know, I do like to try and put a positive spin on things, but here's a positive signal for the year ahead. Most New Zealand employers are planning to hire in 2026. And now that insight actually comes straight from our latest Frog Recruitment Employment and Salary Trends report. But it's also been picked up by HCA Mag as well. So, what we're seeing in the data and in our day to day conversations is a shift from caution to measured growth mode. So it's not a flood of hiring, of course, but it is a clear move away from freezes and restructures, with organisations focusing on critical roles, future capability, and productivity. And this lines up to what we've been talking about in recent 𝗵𝗽𝗫𝗁 segments. So confidence is starting to translate into some real hiring intent, and we're seeing that on the ground here. But here's the important part. We all need to play our role in keeping that momentum going. So there's no shortage of global uncertainty, wars, fuel prices, an election year, but we can't afford to sit back and wait and see how it all plays out. As we've said before, if we can talk ourselves into a recession, we can definitely talk ourselves into a more buoyant economy too. So we need to keep that momentum up. And there are reasons to lean into that optimism. Recent forecasts suggest New Zealand's economy is tipped to grow faster than Australia's, even in the face of global oil shocks. So that's a strong signal that we're more resilient than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. And maybe a word of warning for those who are still tossing up whether it's better to cross the ditch. Maybe, yeah, fair enough, 18 months ago, but I would say the timing's not right now. Better off staying put, please. So while the market still feels competitive for job seekers today, the direction is shifting. Hiring is coming back quietly, strategically, but surely. And if you want a deeper dive into what's driving that, our 2026 market report of employment and salary trends breaks it all down, where the demand is, what candidates want, and how the market is likely to move next. Because momentum doesn't build itself, it comes from businesses choosing to move forward anyway. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We'd love to hear your comments. What are you experiencing in the market? You know, if you've got a crystal ball out there for what's coming next, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And if there's a topic you'd like us to explore, or you want to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time, and keep well.